we're going to be attempting a connection with your grandparents, Abraham Lasagna and Aisha Lasagna. The moment I am asking them to show, I'm seeing a man who was, I don't know if he was tall or taller than your grandmother, but your grandmother seems to be much shorter than him. He is coming across as a very stern person, very, very stern person. And I feel like your grandmother was either someone who could not voice herself or express herself in front of him, something of that sort. Like I'm seeing that whatever he said was word, like nobody can go against it. And I'm also sensing that this your grandfather, either he had like some sort of a military background or some sort of a authoritative background. So it could either be something in the defense forces, or it could be that his father was in the defense and he was brought up on a very strict way. Either that or some sort of a school administrator or a school teacher kind of a vibe, which is very stringent and strict. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, the vibe was like that, although he didn't have any such background, but he was like a very, you have to wake up at 4 means you have to wake up at 4 even if the world is going to end kind of a person.
Very disciplined. So I'm seeing this personality of him is he's got his like shoulders very squared. I don't know if you've seen pictures of him or if you've seen him in person, but I'm seeing like he had his shoulders always squared to the world. Like he was always on defense. Like he always had the feeling that the world was attacking him and he had to always be prepared. So I get this feeling of his defenses always being up no matter what. And the way he came across was like an authoritarian. Like he was not someone you messed with. You wouldn't want to cross words with him unless you were ready for the impact of what he had to say after that. I'm also seeing a man who always wore very pressed or ironed clothes. Like I'm seeing like a very, very neat personality. And with regards to your grandmother, I feel like she was in his shadows. She never could step out of his shadows. She was always the one who looked after him, but always behind the scenes, never in the front lines, never side by side. So I feel like she had all lived a life which was very stifling or very suppressed. Like she could not be herself in his presence. And I feel it was like that till both of them passed. It feels like she went before him.
No, he went a few years before her.
Okay.
And she just passed away 2 years ago.
He went before her. But I feel like even then she was still the same person till the end. Like it feels like she changed. See, generally when somebody who's been suppressed, when the suppressor passes away, they tend to become free. But she was never free. She was always in that cage. She could never step out of that cage. So it made me feel like she passed before him. Like it felt like her personality had already died long time back. She didn't have any personality per se. Like she could not stand up to him or even voice anything, even if it's a simple thing like I don't like this curry or whatever it is. She would not be able to say that. She was in constant fear, and I feel that made her smaller. I don't know if she was shorter than him height wise. Like I'm seeing like she came only up to his shoulders. Like she was quite short. But also I'm seeing like she shrank even more because she was feeling small, very small in front of his largeness, See, the kind of feeling that I'm getting from him was he did not have too many people in his life because of the way he was. He didn't have, first of all, anyone called friends. There were acquaintances or people he knew, maybe 1 or 2 close friends who he could actually relax and you would hear him laugh or like, smile with them. But even that friendship was very strained. It was like the people in his life who he considered friends kind of obeyed that friendship more than it wasn't like a happy friendship. It was like, if I don't do this, then he'll get angry. So it was almost like they had to obey him. So in that way, he's giving me a very dictatorship kind of a feeling, like he dictated everybody's life. And I feel your mother did not want to become like her mother, like your grandmother. Your mother has a brother as well?
She has 5 brothers, 4 or 5 brothers.
Is there another brother with her who together kind of rebelled?
Didn't rebel but supported her.
Okay, because I feel like your grandparents stopped talking to him as well for a very long time. I feel like your grandfather did not like that particular brother supporting your mom. Your grandfather is showing me one single brother. He's not showing me the rest of the brothers. He's showing me that one person and both of them rebelling against him. You know, so whatever your mom did, it feels like he holds her brother equally responsible. So there is this feeling of not forgiving both of them and not just her. I'm also seeing that probably the one who supported her was also the only one in the brothers who had the courage or the strength to stand up for what is right. And I feel like he tried living his life in that way, but I feel somewhere he also kind of compromised or succumbed to his father's wishes. So it's not like your mom kind of completely cut herself away from that kind of dictatorship, but her brother was halfway out and halfway in. That's the kind of feeling I'm getting. Like, so he did as much as he could to stand up for what he wanted, but at the end or somewhere in the middle, he kind of compromised and gave in because he didn't want such a big scene to happen in the house. So there's like a 50-50 thing that happened with your uncle is what I'm saying. Like, he gave in to a certain extent with his father, but at the same time, he did stand up for what he thought was right. For someone else, but not for himself. You know what I mean? Like, he, I think, married according to his father's wishes and all of that. That's what I'm saying. I think he saw pictures of you when you were born. Either your mother had sent him pictures, or I'm seeing him looking at baby pictures of you. I don't know if your uncle showed him the pictures, but somehow he received pictures of you as a child. And I'm seeing like photographs. I'm not seeing on the phone or on the screen, but I'm seeing like physical photographs.
Physical photos,
and I'm seeing that, you know, his heart sank. Like, he wanted to reach out, but his ego was so big that he didn't want to compromise on his integrity. Like, he thought that if he made a decision, he has to stick by it no matter what. But the moment he saw a picture of you, I feel like you were one of the first granddaughters, or something about you was different for him. I'm not seeing that you were the first granddaughter. I'm not seeing that.
Because maybe my mom was his favorite kid or something.
I feel like when he saw a picture of you, he recognized you from somewhere. Like, there was a soul recognition that happened. It also feels that maybe he saw a glimpse of your mother as a baby when he first carried her. I don't know. But it feels like there was some sort of a soul recognition. There's a deep longing. I feel like at that moment when he saw the pictures, there was a sinking feeling in his heart. Like, what has he done? Type, you know, that I shouldn't have done that. But immediately the ego took over and was like, okay, whatever, you know, and he put the pictures aside. Like, I'm seeing that. So there was like a few seconds of a glimmer of affection, and then it vanished, is what I'm saying. Because he felt that he had to stick to his ideals more than he had to compromise and, you know, open his heart up. He really wanted to reach out, and I feel like there were times when he indirectly asked about you, but it wasn't like a direct communication.
Yes. So I grew up around him, and my parents would leave me at their house, you know, when we'd have holidays and they'd have to go to work and stuff like that. So he'd relay messages to me via my grandmother, like ask her to wear a longer t-shirt, those kind of rules. Like, he wouldn't want to say them to me straight, so he'd make my grandmother come and say them to me. And I used to find that pretty strange, because he'd be speaking to all the other grandkids, but for some reason, like, he would look through me.
So I'm getting this feeling that at least for the first few years after your mom got married, until she had you, I don't think they were even in the same house. I don't see them being in the same vicinity. So that is why I'm seeing the pictures. I feel it's only after you were born that they kind of came back to live with their parents or to interact with their parents. But I don't think before that they had any sort of communication. And that is why he's showing me pictures. It feels like before you guys came and you started spending time with your grandparents, he found out information about you indirectly, like through his sons, or like, you know, oh, so what is she doing? What are they doing for her? Like, you know, something like that. But he didn't want people to know he had affection for you. That is what I'm saying. Because I feel like, I don't know if he saw his mother in you, but I'm getting this feeling like the moment he saw you, it felt like he recognized that soul. So I don't know if he had lost his mother before you were born, but it looks like when he saw you, it felt like his mother had come back to him.
Okay.
There was this some sort of a soul recognition that happened when he saw you as a child. Okay, again, his ego was too big for him to come down his high horse. Basically, what he's telling me is like, if he had spoken to you, it would mean defeat for him. That he had accepted the marriage for your mom. If he had spoken. So it wasn't like a personal thing per se. It was not like he was against you, but he didn't like the fact that your mom decided that she wanted to marry somebody else and go against his wishes. Okay. So that is why, if he had accepted you, it means he's accepted that as well.
Yeah.
So he didn't want that. And it feels like your mother didn't really care about it. I'm seeing her coming and she's like talking to him now. Like, for her, she didn't hold his anger against him. Like, I feel like your mother was very like, yeah, he's going to be like this only. Let me just accept it and move on with my life. So she didn't have any anger towards her father. I mean, initially maybe she did, but through the years, like after you were born and all, she just kind of got used to the fact that he's an old, stubborn man. He's not going to change. So might as well just be happy around him and let him know that, that she's happy, and it's his decision that to hold on to that anger. And it's not from her side. So she made it a point to be happy in front of him. Like, she was talking about her husband and her family and her life in general. And he would listen to all this, but he would not react. So she wanted him to know that she had a happy life. And that kind of pissed him off even more. And that is why he didn't want to break that deal he made with himself with regards to his daughter marrying from another religion. I'm seeing like your grandmother was quite affectionate though. Like when your grandfather was not around, at least she would like pamper you or like to you. But when the moment he came in, her demeanor changed. You'll notice like, suddenly she would become more stiff, or she would just kind of withdraw her energies, become more distant, because she was really, really scared of him. Like, she was absolutely terrified of your grandfather. She's showing me this apartment or this hall or wherever you spent your childhood. I'm seeing white floors, and I'm seeing like it was like a living room space where you would be playing on the floor, and she would sit with you on the floor and play with you. But the moment your grandfather, and there's a chair that your grandfather would sit in that particular hall, like chair, like nobody else sat on it. So the moment he came in, she would just like scurry off like to the kitchen or like to do something else and leave you there. Like, I'm seeing like he would just look at you and like turn away, like he wouldn't like play with you or anything. But he enjoyed sitting next to you. Like, even though he did not show you that kind of affection or attention, he had his eye on you. Like, it wasn't like if you say probably crawled off down the stairs, he would go behind you if nobody else was there, or he would call his wife and say, hey, she's crawling off. But he was not someone who would just completely ignore you. So there was some sort of an affection towards you, but I don't think it was expressed in any way. And that is why you feel like a lot of things have been unspoken or unsaid with your grandfather. But he wants you to know that he could not compromise. It's not like he was like that all the time. I feel like he was like your mother when he was younger. Like, he's showing me that when he was in his teenage years or early 20s, he was a lot like your mother, very rebellious and very like, I want to do this. But something happened. I don't know if his father was very strict or his father gave him an ultimatum, or because I see like his father, your great grandfather, was exactly like your grandfather. Okay. He was also very authoritative and very controlling of people around him. He's giving me this feeling, I don't know if anybody can collaborate this, but he's giving me this feeling like he actually was in love with somebody else and it didn't work out because of his grandfather, I mean like his father's influence, and it became like an ultimatum of sorts, like something that broke him completely. Okay. And then he gave up on life in general. Like, he just thought, okay, let me just be focused on myself, my discipline, everyone has to, start. So the control came from there. I don't feel like he was like this growing up. I'm seeing him being a very youthful, energetic youth, like who would like to do things, travel, but he was controlled, he was contained is what I'm saying. Like, it felt like either he was the only son or he was one of the sons that the focus was on. I feel like something about the way he was, his personality, it had to be curbed, either he was too enthusiastic or he was too curious to know things, and so his father was like, discipline, 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 like he wanted to box him in. So I feel like at a very young age he had actually fallen in love with somebody, like probably in his 18, 19 years old or 20 years old that time, and he fought a lot for it, but then he finally broke. He's giving me this feeling like your great grandfather would have either threatened that girl's family or something like that would have happened, where the girl ditched him and left, saying that I can't do this anymore, and that kind of broke him because he was fighting for it, but it didn't happen. So I feel that when your mother did the same thing, it reminded him of that, and he didn't have it. He didn't want her to have it,
Right.
Like it triggered a lot. Like your mother's relationship triggered a lot of what happened with him while he was growing up with his father. And I think that is one of the reasons he could not forgive your mom. I feel like what your mother did reflected on the lack of strength that he should have had back then, but he didn't.
Right.
Because I'm seeing like something broke the camel's back. That is what I'm getting. Like there was something that happened that completely changed his personality from being a very curious, happy-go-lucky kind of a personality to this commanding, controlling kind of a person, And he gives me all these authoritarian vibes of being a strict principal, being a strict commander, like in the defense. Like it's always like somebody who's feared, not loved because of the discipline,
Yeah. Is there anything that they want to tell me?
Your grandmother wants you to know that she loved you and you knew she loved you a lot. But she's also kind of apologetic for not being able to express that kind of love she had for you. It feels like she wanted to do more for you, but she could not. It also feels like she wanted to give you more, but she could not. I don't know if it was, like when she passed, she had something she wanted to give you, like some sort of jewelry or some sort of a token of her appreciation, but I feel like it did not get to you. It somehow didn't come to you, and she feels like she should have given it to you when she was alive, but she didn't, and it feels like she could have given more. That is her regret from her side. Like she feels, I should have at least somehow found a way to make him compromise with his daughter and, accept the fact that it's okay, it's done now. There's nothing he can do about it. But she was so terrified of him that she could not. I feel like even after he passed, right, his shadow was hanging around her. Like she could never get out of that shadow. And I feel she died because she didn't know how else to live her life, because that was her constant. Him towering over her was her constant. So when
a few years before he died, she lost her voice and she stopped walking, and she was mostly on the wheelchair. And then when he died, she didn't even know because she was not in that state. Then till she died, she was just like that. Like she needed constant a nurse to be with her for 24 hours.
Okay, so that is why I think at the very beginning I felt like she had passed before him.
Yeah.
Because I think she was already gone. At least part of her was already gone. Yeah. And it was like even after he had passed, it was that feeling like she could never escape the box that she was in. And it just took her a little while to realize that, oh, she can actually go, because he's not there anymore to control her. But even now, like when both of them are showing up together, it feels to me that the kind of personality she's pushing forward through me is that like of fear, of constant fear. And the regret is of not being able to give you more. I don't know if it is more of a property or more of a jewelry. I don't think she had anything that was hers per se, but she wanted to give you whatever little she had, because she felt tremendous guilt for what your father did to your mom. So I guess that is one of the reasons she wanted to give you more than she could, but she could not. There was that regret is there with her regarding that. It also feels like some sort of a token from her side was supposed to come to you. I don't know. She's saying, I don't know if she received it.
I don't think so, because I'm like second in line. It's my mother, her sisters, and then the brother's kids, and then...
Okay, it feels like a very small thing. Like, I don't know if it's a ring or if it's like a coin or if it's something like that. Like it's almost like a coin-sized object. So it could be like a ring that she wore. or it could be like an old coin that she had with her, like, you know, with some sort of a either a religious symbolism or something to do with a charm, like a lucky charm or something like that. Like, I'm seeing like a coin shaped thing. You can probably ask or check with your mother about this if she had anything like that. She wanted to give that to you. It felt like she wanted you to have a piece of her and know that she had that love and affection for you. There's a lot of love and affection that she had for you, but she could not express, and she feels guilty for not being able to do that. Your grandfather kind of now understands what he has done, because when he's now on the other side, he sees he could have been different. Even though that whatever happened in his life with his dad, there was no reason for him to become that person so strongly, because that whatever happened was not so tragic or impactful that made him become like that. But he chose it. Like, he said, okay, if this is what you want, this is what I'll be.
Right.
It was more like a rebellious decision that he had taken. And he says, I don't know when it became my personality. Like, he doesn't realize when he went from choosing to be that to becoming that, like, embodiment of that rebellious choice. And he says, I just couldn't change. I couldn't. Like, even if he wanted to, he felt trapped in that personality. He just couldn't change. No matter what, he just couldn't break out of that mindset of, I have to be like this, you know. Sometimes he hated the way he was. He's showing me, I don't know how he passed, but before he passed, did he have any sort of a brain related thing, like an aneurysm or a blood pressure or something to do with his brain?
It was mostly his heart, Teja.
But before he passed, like not when he passed, but before he passed, was he ever admitted for like headaches or migraines or any brain related issues or head related issues?
Possibly.
Because I feel like he took on such stress about being that person that he had either high blood pressure or
he had high BP.
And it feels like it went to his head, like that blood pressure, right? Like it was pumping in his head. Like I'm seeing that his brain was swollen. Like there was no space for extra thought. Like it was so tightly packed, his brain. So I feel like he was constantly either overthinking things or he was in his head a lot. So it makes me feel like he took a lot of pressure on his brain. So I don't know if he ever had a brain scan, but it makes me feel like if he had high blood pressure, it was affecting his brain. Every time it shot up, he would either feel dizzy or he would have a migraine or some sort of it would reflect in his head more than in his heart. He's showing me that it was because he was struggling to break out of that mold that he put himself in. He didn't know how to get out because he got so used to being like that for so many years. He just didn't know how to break out of that mold. And I feel sorry when he says that, because it feels like that person, that boy, that youngster, or that teenager was stuck in his personality, couldn't know how to get out. He could have been more fun, but he didn't know how to get out. Like he was trapped in that old man's body. Like he became an old man early 20s only, or mid 20s.
Yeah.
That is something that he's showing me, that he could not somehow get himself out of that mold that he put him in. So there is a lot of regret from his side as well. He feels like if he wasn't like that, your mother would not have become the person she is today. Like I feel your mother makes choices out of freedom and not out of restriction anymore. She needs to, at least, if she's not doing that, she needs to use that as a lesson to choose from her freedom of choice, rather than, oh no, because I'm so-and-so's wife or so-and-so's mother, I have to make this choice. He wants her to be free. He wants her to choose from freedom and not from any sort of restriction, because he's not there anymore controlling anybody's life. But I feel like some of his sons have become like him. I don't know if one or two of the older ones are very similar to his personality. That's what he has that regret for. So he says your mom and that one brother who supported her are at least not like him, and he wants them to stay that way, or in fact become more free from him, knowing that he's not influencing them anymore. But I think they find it difficult that shadow was so strong over everybody. It's difficult to let it go. But he's saying at least your mom's not in that shadow. The feeling he's giving me is that your mother of late is thinking of if her father was there, what would he think about this or what? So he's saying let her not get into that thought pattern, to just choose from freedom. Like, I am free, I can do what I want, I'm going to choose from that. He's showing me that your mom's emotionally conflicted about something.
My mom, although she married my father, she's always sought validation and approval from her father. And she'd always compromise us, three of us, me, my father, and my sister. She'd always put us second when it came to choosing between them, and she would allow them to say nasty things to us. Like, my aunts used to be like, "Oh, your dad's a Hindu, you shouldn't listen to him." Or if they'd see a temple on the street, they'd say, "Do this to the Hindu idols," and stuff like that. And my mom wouldn't say, "Hey, that's not how you talk to my kids." So my mom has always sought they came first for them. She made that clear with us.
Yeah, I think that conflict is something she needs to end now. And that is why he's saying she needs to choose from being free and not from being in that shadow of her father anymore. So she needs to choose that, because I feel she's constantly emotionally conflicted. That is the feeling that he's giving me. And I think when she listens to this message from him, she will probably break down. That is the feeling she's giving me. Like, he's telling her, I'm letting you go. It's like, I'm giving you freedom to choose what you want. Don't be under my shadow anymore. And he wants the same message to be delivered to your uncle who supported your mother, not to feel like he's still constricted, because I feel like your uncle also is very careful when he makes choices. He's always on the fence about things. He's never bold enough to be one side or the other, He's always weighing the options, so to speak, like to take a calculated risk. So he still has that influence of his father on him in that aspect. So he wants both of them to know that they're free to do what they want. You can't do anything about the other kids because they're already set in their ways. But these two people, they can still change. And he wants them to know that they're free to do what they want to do. And I think that is a very important message for them, because they need to know they're free. That is what he wants them to know. He is regretting his actions, but at the same time, he feels like that was a purpose he had to fulfill as well. Part of his soul's journey, to be the way he was, so that the people who he came across would get influenced by that and either choose complete freedom or choose to be in the shadow. So now that he's gone, he wants them to choose that complete freedom. That is what is coming through. So these are the messages I have from your grandparents. I hope these messages resonated with you.
They did. Thank you.